Hi, this is Rochelle Kopp of Japan Intercultural Consulting, and I've made this little video to give you an overview of something new that I've been working on, which is the 8 habits to support digital transformation, or in Japanese, Hatarakikata o kaete seisansei o takameru tame no yatsu no shukan. The reason I wanted to make this video is I think a lot of people have been wondering just what I've been up to. I've been tweeting a lot about speaking at Microsoft conferences. This is a picture of myself and Tsuyoshi Ushio from Microsoft at Decode in May this year, and talking about some 8 habits things and posting a lot of things that are just in Japanese. And I think everyone's wondering, well, what are you up to and what's this all about? So wanted to explain this, and also wanted to share because this is really interesting stuff that I think has a lot of implications for Japanese business. So what is it that we've been working on? So I've been asked to partner with Microsoft to develop a new framework and methodology that will help Japanese organizations achieve digital transformation, such as adopting agile software development, DevOps, and other advanced technologies. And this method that we've developed is really a way to help Japanese organizations transform their culture and their management approach, improve their work style, which, as you know, is a big hot button in Japan called hatarakikata, improve productivity and engagement. The reason I'm really excited about this project is it really combines a lot of my existing skills and interests in terms of Japanese corporate culture and Japanese human resource practices. And this is something that's desperately needed in Japan. Japan has extremely low productivity and engagement when compared with other countries, and this is really hurting the economy. And Japan is very much behind in digital transformation, and this as well is hurting the Japanese economy. So the other reason that I'm really excited about this project is that in working on it, we've been getting a lot of traction with these concepts, and in talking about these topics, we've had huge traction on social media. When we've had events, they sell out nearly instantly. A lot of people in Japan seem to be really hungry for change, and this is a way to do change that's appealing to them. And we've been doing some workshops for companies and getting really amazing results from those, and I'll share a little bit about that in this video. So I really feel like we have the potential to start a movement here. Also, it's really fun working with Microsoft. There are tons of cool people there, and I've been very impressed with them. This is the key person at Microsoft that I've been working with, and it was really his idea to do this project. So his name is Tsuyoshi, and he's been a DevOps and Agile consultant and coach for over 15 years. So he's kind of the rare combination of a technical guy who loves to program and hack, as well as he's an organization change professional, and he's really good at helping organizations change, and he's worked with a lot of organizations to help them adopt Agile and DevOps. He's been with Microsoft since 2015, and he speaks at tons of conferences, and he's a best-selling book author, and his thing is he really wants to change how software development is done in Japan. Part of Tsuyoshi's mission at Microsoft is to help companies adopt Agile and DevOps. And there's a challenge with that, is that the adoption rate for Agile is very different in Japan compared to the rest of the world. In fact, 95% of software development projects around the world use Agile methodology. However, in Japan, it's only 31%. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Agile methodology was created in 2001 as a more flexible way to create software. And it's in contrast to the waterfall method, which was the traditional method before it. And in the waterfall method, you plan out really detailed specs in advance, and then you code everything, and then you show it to your customer. And this kind of very orderly, predictable approach tends to really appeal to Japanese. And that's one reason why Japanese companies have been reluctant to abandon the waterfall approach and not as fast to adopt Agile as people in other countries. So Tsuyoshi was thinking about why is there this issue and what can I do to help Japanese companies? when he saw this information in a tweet that Alistair Cockburn, one of the founders of the agile software movement, had tweeted. And what he had done is he had taken some indices about culture from kind of one of the granddaddies of the cross-cultural field, a guy named Geert Hofstede, whose work I refer to in my consulting on culture, and looked at these different indices and thought about how they affected a company's ability to adopt agile software development. And on the basis of that, created an index, the difficulty of agile adoption index. And what do you know? Japan came up as number one most difficult country to adopt agile. And so when Tsuyoshi saw this, he said, okay, this may be key to trying to help Japanese companies adapt agile, that I need to help them with the cultural issue. There needs to be some kind of cultural change happening. It happened that Tsuyoshi and I had a mutual friend, and Tsuyoshi said to this friend, I need someone who really understands this cultural issue to help me. And the friend said, well, you've got to talk to Rochelle. And I do think, humbly speaking, I was kind of the right person for him to be introduced to, because I've been focusing on Japanese business culture and organization behavior my entire career. I have very long experience working with Japanese companies on cultural, HR, and organizational issues, and have worked with Japanese firms all the way from the largest companies in Japan down to startups, and I'm very familiar with the cultural issues that they have. And I published a couple years ago in Japan a book called Creating Motivated Employees in Japan, which will be coming out in English soon, that talks a lot about productivity engagement and some of the problems of how Japanese companies manage themselves. And so that has made me pretty well known in Japan as a thought leader in this field. Also, I live in Silicon Valley and have actually written a couple books related to Silicon Valley, including in English a book called Valley Speak, Deciphering the Jargon of Silicon Valley. So I'm very familiar with the U.S. high-tech environment, and also the contrast between how companies in Silicon Valley tend to do things versus how Japanese companies tend to do things. So Tsuyoshi said, I want you to help me to create a methodology that will help Japanese companies more effectively adopt agile or DevOps or any other new technology. And what he said is, I've got the technical stuff covered and I can do that really well, but I need to help Japanese companies change their mindset, change their culture, change the way that they work, and become more productive and more flexible. Because if you're going to adopt agile, you can't just take the practices and just do them as kind of rituals. You have to have the mindset too, because the agile methodology is really based on a mindset for how you go about things. And without that mindset, it just doesn't really work that well. So we came up with a framework that we called the 8 Habits. And these are the things that need to happen in terms of mindset change for Japanese companies to be able to do agile software development effectively. We then created some workshop designs based on the framework. We did beta tests of the workshop at Microsoft clients. We also did a bunch of public presentations and workshops and created some blogs and videos. So we've been pretty busy. So what I'd like to do now is share with you the 8 habits that we came up with. The first one is be lazy. Now, for anyone who's familiar with Japanese culture, that might sound like something very difficult for Japanese to do, because Japanese emphasize the opposite of being lazy, working really hard. So the idea of being lazy is that you would get the biggest possible impact from the least amount of effort. So in other words, being elegantly efficient. And that's really a mindset shift for most Japanese, who tend to focus on, we have to do everything, every bug has to be fixed, every item on the list has to be done, and tend to not prioritize as well as they could. Second item has to do with comfort with risks and mistakes. Now again, this one is very different from traditional Japanese corporate culture, which is extremely risk averse and very perfectionistic. The thing is, if you're doing agile software development, you have to be willing to experiment and then learn quickly from things that don't work and then readjust in quick iteration cycles. Next one is comfort with uncertainty. Japanese companies love to plan. However, when you're trying to innovate, you can't always plan what's going to happen, or you don't know in advance what is actually going to work or not work. So becoming more comfortable with uncertainty is very important. Next thing on the list is servant leadership. So this is a leadership concept that recently has become popular in the United States and is frequently used in the agile movement. And the idea is that the leader, rather than telling everyone what to do and bossing them around, instead exists to serve their team, to make it easier for them to do their work, to support them, and to create a good environment for them to get things done. And this is paired with another thing that is really important in the agile approach, which is that teams manage themselves. So rather than being dependent on their boss to tell them what to do, the members of the team decide together what needs to get done, who's going to do it, etc. Now, this is rather different from what's typical in many Japanese organizations, where the managers are very much micromanagers and very, in some cases, rather dictatorial. So this is definitely a switch for Japanese teams. In order to have self-managed teams and servant leadership, you have to be able to trust employees. And part of trusting employees is being able to delegate to them, and also being able to not have a whole lot of really restrictive rules. A lot of Japanese companies have pretty heavy bureaucracies and are very, very rule-based, and that tends to be a drag on productivity and creates an atmosphere of distrust. Another thing that's very important in terms of mindset is that individuals have to have confidence in themselves, in their own judgment, and in their skills as professionals. What we've been finding is that in many Japanese environments, the frontline workers are so used to always being told what to do and always being second-guessed that when you do set up self-management teams, they are not confident in making decisions on themselves, and they try and go find someone to tell them what to do. So getting people confident making decisions on their own is really part of it. So it's not just changing the manager's mentality, it's changing the mentality of the individuals as well. And then finally, one mindset that's really important is balance of power. That often in Japanese organizations, the customer is God, and you can't say no to a customer, and that could be either external customers or internal ones. And for an agile software development approach to work, you need to be able to have close collaboration with your customer and on a more equal footing. So using these 8 habits, we started doing workshops for Microsoft clients. And let me share about a couple of those. One of those was with Nissan. And we started out, we did actually 3 workshops for them. The first workshop was right when they had started their agile adoption. They did their first sprint planning meeting, which is part of the agile approach, in the morning, and then we did our workshop in the afternoon. So we got them these ideas right when they were starting their agile journey. We then did a follow-up with them 3 months later to work with them on some of the areas that needed further addressing. And then also, they were so enthusiastic about what we had done that they asked us to do another workshop for managers to help them understand what this group was doing and how they could support that group and collaborate it with them more. So Nissan had just an absolutely fabulous agile implementation. They had great project results. They really became a really wonderful team, and when they had started off, the people on the project, a lot of them didn't even know each other. Some of them were from contractors or system integrators, and they really melded as a team, and they worked well, and their project was so successful that the director in charge of the area said to them, I don't know exactly what it is you're doing, but you're getting great results, so please keep doing it. So they were getting really great senior level attention for the results that they were creating. And these are just a few quotes from the participants, and they really felt that understanding the mindset behind Agile was really important for helping them to be able to be effective. And if they hadn't done this workshop, they would have just had sort of a Japanese style waterfall with a thin veneer of Agile. And this really helped them to do a true implementation. And we did a kind of a follow-up interview and spoke with them a little bit, reflecting back. And at the bottom here, I've just put a couple of the quotes that I just really loved from that. And one of them was the person from the team, the product owner, which in Agile is kind of the person from the business side. And he said something that I swear I didn't think I'd ever hear a Japanese person say, to be quite honest. He said, we've got the list of tasks, and I really love going down that list and checking off the ones that we don't actually need to do and taking them off the list. Again, that's so opposite from the typical Japanese approach of we have to do everything. He was prioritizing, and he was identifying things that didn't really actually have to be done, and was gleeful about it, and that was pretty amazing for me to hear. Also, one comment that just really warmed my heart is the Scrum Master on the team said that this project was the most enjoyable one he's ever worked on in his entire career. So not only did this project get fabulous results, but it was fun to work on. And so changing the work environment in that positive way is just, I think, really exciting. We also did a workshop for NEC solution innovators. So they're what's called in sort of, maybe we can call it maybe Japanese English, but a common term in Japan is a systems integrator. And they are the systems integrator for the NEC group, where they're doing software development projects for other parts of the NEC group. So this team was involved in a DevOps adoption, which is one step or several steps more advanced than Agile, and they got incredible results from this DevOps adoption, and so impressive that actually it was the subject of a Microsoft case study. And I've put a link to it here, and I'll put it in the notes under the video so that you can take a look at it. They had cycles of release cycles of like 8 months to reduce to like a week. I mean, they got just really startling results and just found their entire software development process became significantly more effective. So as part of this effort, we did an 8 Habits workshop for them, and they really felt that this contributed to the mindset change on the team. And in fact, a couple of the managers tweeted about it, and it seems that a particularly big thing that happened after the workshop was the operations manager had just a huge change in his approach, like to the point it was just like startlingly different than what it had been before in a positive direction, and that just made a huge impression on them. They said it was really sort of like magic, so that was very exciting. We did a bunch of other beta tests and tried to do it in a variety of different settings to try it out in different contexts. And so we did one with Caramedica, which is a startup that's related to health information. Navitime, which a lot of people are probably familiar with. They have a service that helps people plan their routes when commuting or going someplace. CINT, and so that's actually a Brazilian multinational that offers services to Japanese customers. And so we did this workshop for a team that had people not just from Japan, but from Brazil and China and several other countries together. So it was a multicultural version of it. And we also did a workshop for the Microsoft Japan Evangelist team. And that's the team that Ushio-san belongs to, and he's focusing on Agile and DevOps. Other members of the team focus on other technologies, and they all were very enthusiastic that these concepts are very relevant for the other technologies that they're helping their clients with. So we really found in a variety of contexts that this workshop was extremely effective. And really what we found in many cases is, we would be doing a 3.5 or 4 hour workshop, and then we could have gone on much longer. People, once they started talking about these ideas and coming up with action plans, they just were so enthusiastic. It was really exciting to see. We also did some public presentations, and so Ushio-san and I spoke at the Regional Scrum Gathering Tokyo in January, so this is us giving those talks. And we also created a series of videos that are on Microsoft's Channel 9, and I'll give everyone a link to those, in which we explain each of the habits, and those have gotten a lot of attention on social media. I did a workshop down in Osaka at a group called DevLove, which is software developers in the Kansai area. And so here's a picture from that workshop. All the post-its on the wall are all the ideas that the participants came up with things that they wanted to do, try and implement based on what we were talking about in the workshop. So this gives you a really great visual of how many ideas people come up with once they start talking about these topics. It's like you kind of taking the lid off, and just all this wonderful stuff blossoms out. We also did a session at Microsoft that was kind of an open session, and we ended up being, within a few hours, our 50 seats were filled, and we had sort of 100 people waiting. So definitely big demand for learning more about this topic. And then also Ushio-san and I spoke at Decode, and if you're not familiar with it, Decode is a big event that Microsoft Japan does every year. Over 2,000 people go to it. It's focused on people who are doing software development, and it's kind of a very, very prestigious and big event. So we did a presentation there talking about the 8 habits and their application. So this was the description in the conference schedule. And so here's Ushio-san and myself beforehand. We had a full house. There were people standing up in the back. There were over 200 people there. And had incredible great results, including someone took a snapshot of one of our slides and it got retweeted over 2,800 times. So clearly it struck a chord with people. This particular slide was talking about how Japanese companies need to be creating a better work environment for IT professionals. So we've learned a lot in doing all of this work, and really it's been about a year since we started this project. And the first thing we found is that these 8 habits are really useful, and they really work for helping companies like Nissan or NEC, solution innovators that are doing agile and DevOps implementations. But also, we've been finding a lot of interest from people even outside of software development who are interested in improving work style, increasing engagement, and productivity. That these are approaches that are really useful for improving software development techniques, but they're also useful in general as well. And the thing that's been really exciting for me is to find out that people in Japan are really hungry for these concepts. As I mentioned before, a lot of these concepts are really kind of the exact opposite of how a lot of Japanese companies run themselves. And there are a lot of people in Japan who want change. But the problem is they don't know how, or they don't know where to start. And what the 8 habits does is it provides a concrete approach for creating change. And when you do it as an in-house workshop and everyone on the team talks about these ideas and gets on board and agrees to do them together, then you can really get some significant change. So this has really been great for me to see with my own eyes that the change really is possible in Japan if you have the right tools and the right approaches and you create the right atmosphere, or what you would say in Japanese, the ba, or the space for doing it. So really, I think that these habits, they're great for promoting digital transformation, and they're great overall. And this could be really the approach Japanese companies need to make some changes they need to make. So, what's next? You're probably wondering. Well, first of all, we're going to continue to offer 8 Habits in house workshops for organizations. And if that is something that you are interested in, please let me know. I would love to talk with you about that. We're also going to continue to offer public workshops, and the next one is going to be in Tokyo on July 25th, and I'll put a link to that underneath the video. I am also doing right now an online course, and people can sign up for that and start at any time. It's kind of a go at your own pace. And I've put the URL here. I'll also put that in the notes. And so that's something as well. If there are people on your team who are interested in learning more about these ideas, but maybe not ready to do a full workshop, that this is a really great way to do it. Also, I have a new book coming out in Japan on July 18th, and so I've got a picture of the cover here. And this has a lot of information that's related to the 8 habits, including a pretty good discussion of servant leadership. And stay tuned for more. We're just getting started with this. As I said, I really think this has the potential to be a movement, and I'm really excited about it. And so I'm going to keep working on this and doing my best to do my own little bit to help Japan change and to help make things better for Japanese workers. I want to have more people say this was the most fun project I ever worked on when they've started using these techniques. I want to hear more of that, and so that's really my goal. Thanks so much.